And so the intention here is that we record and we will post this video to the archives just of today's work. So if you would rather not be in the recording or want no chance of being in the recording, just turn off your video, take your name off the screen. Otherwise, I believe mostly the only people who pop up on the recording are those who talk. And so if you're not talking, you likely won't appear, but you could. So just be forewarned. But thank you for that. Our tradition so far, this is the 13th meetup. We're pretty excited actually to have built such a community and such a lovely group of people who keep coming back, and then always a couple new friends. And so for our new friends, the tradition here has been that we take about 4 minutes to introduce ourselves to a couple people. And so I'm going to send you all into a couple rooms. Hold on, let me get my number right. There are about three or so people in a room. When you get to the room, would you just introduce yourself to the others? Tell everybody where you're from and who do you teach? Where are you from and who do you teach? And then I'll give you a call back in just a couple minutes and we'll all come back to hear our presenters. So watch your screen for your breakout room.
We're very obedient. We came when we were called.
You came right away. Almost everybody else is back. Good.
All right, are we all back?
I think.
We're back.
Awesome. So the reason this group's discussions are so fabulous is because all of you are so willing to share your ideas. And so we've started this, this format of 5-minute presentations. And I will gently nudge you when you have a minute left, just so that we can keep things brief. And then we'll have a discussion based on the things that were shared and any other questions or things you want to throw into the discussion. And so I want to say thank you to Anita and Mary, who have offered to present today. And Anita, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Mary, and we'll just do those back to back. So Anita, the floor is yours. Make sure you unmute. Can you unmute, Anita?
That's a good start, isn't it? So it's lovely to see you all here. So I'm based in UK, and I teach with Mary at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London, which is a music conservatoire. And we work with, and also Kay, who's on screen here today. And we teach Doubt-Crow's Eurythmics to children from age 4 to 11. But during the rest of the week, I am teaching in a number of state schools. I particularly specialise in early years work. And I do music groups for parents and small children, and I run a community choir. So what I thought I would do first of all is I'm just going to show you some of the spaces that I'm working in at the moment in my schools, and then I'm going to teach you 2 of the exercises, or run through 2 of the exercises I've used this week in my first few days back at school, because we come back in the UK about September the 4th. We come back to school then, so we've only been back a really few days. Now I'm going to try and do a share screen, but I haven't done this since July, so I'm hoping it's going to actually work beautifully. So just give me a moment to just bring that share screen up and let's see what happens. Brilliant. So hang on a minute. I just need to find my thingamajiggy first. Where is it? Oh, it's all closed down, which is not what I needed it to do. Hang on a minute, it's automatically closed itself, so that's not helpful. Right, good. Hopefully that is gonna come back for us now. Let's just see what happens. Brilliant. And yeah, I've got it. Okay. So I'm hoping that you can see some pictures in front of you now. So do give me a thumbs up if you can see those pictures. That would be really helpful. Brilliant. So this is one of my schools that I've been working in today, in actual fact. So most of the time I'm in a covered area. I'm outside, but I adjoin onto a playground, which when I first saw it, I thought, brilliant. I've got all the space I could possibly want in the world, except that because of COVID, we have split play times, and all the different year groups are coming out onto the playground at different times. And so today I ended up trying to teach a reception class, and I had all the year 2s on the playground right next to me. And it was the reception class's very first lesson. So that was quite a challenge for me, I can tell you. The children are having to sit on chairs because in my particular schools, they didn't want them touching the ground in any way. So they sit on chairs, and then at the end of every session, I have to clean all the chairs and move on. Minimal equipment that we're working with, and the equipment that I am working with, I'm using found objects. For example, I'm using pebbles from the beach that I live near. I'm using fir cones. I'm using sticks from the woods. And then at the end of each week, I leave those pieces of equipment outside, and then the sunshine will clean them, and then I can use them in the following week. In this class here, I was using buckets because they're very cheap and easy to use. And my head teacher was very happy for me to do that. This is one of my other schools that I work in. So you can see, again, we've got the chairs, and at the back of the room, I've got these big bifold doors, and they will open out, and outside I've got this little stage area. So it's giving me 2 classrooms, and while the weather is fair at the moment, this is a very nice and reasonable space to work in. Obviously not ideal for doing Doubt-Crows, but as I'm going to show you later, I have managed to come up with some exercise that work even in this rather tricky space. And the last class I'm going to show you, last space I'm going to show you is this one here. Again, we've got the chairs. all the school's been emptied of a lot of equipment and dumped in the back of my music room for ease for other teachers to get to, which is a real shame because I don't have any tables in this room, and I thought I was going to have enough space to do some decent work, as they'd said I only needed to teach 15 in a class instead of my normal 30. But as I've lost half my classroom, that's not too easy. This is my outdoor area, but again, it runs onto a playground at the bottom of the screen, so it is quite tricky at quite a lot of times of the day, but I am glad that I have got a clear space. Now, I'm aware that time is running on, so what I would like to do is just to do a game that I played with my reception children today, and these children are 4 and some of them are just about to be 5 years old, so they're really tiny, and they haven't done any Darryl Crow's Eurythmics before. It's their first time at school, and the game we're going to play is Pop, Ripple, Freeze, and I hope that you all play this game with me. So if you'd like to stand up and have a little bit of space, that would be great, whatever space you've got.
Anita, would you unshare your screen and then we'll be able to see you?
I certainly will.
Thank you. Then we can
There
see
we go.
you.
Excellent. So I've got a drum with me, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this sound on my drum. I hope you can hear that sound. And when I make that sound, what I'd like you to do is just run on the spot lightly on your toes. Can you do that? And it's going to get a bit louder. What are you going to do? And can you freeze? Here comes a ripple. Lightly on your toes. Freeze. Every time I do a pop, can you do a jump for me? What do you think you've got to do if I do this? 2 jumps. Great, I think you get the idea how that game works. And we played with, when I played it at school today, it carried on for quite a while, and I was using different types of touch on the drum just to observe what they would do. As it's their first class today, we certainly weren't doing a lot of correction, we were just experiencing it. It was so nice to see the children really laughing and having great fun with that. It's brilliant. Now, the next...
Anita, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, 1 minute. The next activity I did was all about pulse and unusual sounds that would make people jump. And I had some cards here. And these are my cards. And I had a piece of music that was playing. And this piece of music just had a regular pulse on a drum. And I asked the children to see if they could move one hand in time with the pulse on the drum. And sometimes we did it with a foot. I was trying to get them to explore doing different movements without sound. And then we had a card for shoulders, and we had one for blinking and winking. Blinking and winking. I split the class in half. One half of the class was moving to the explosive flute sound, and the other side of the class was just moving to the drum pulse. I'm going to see if I can quickly play a clip of this in my 5 minutes just to see what will happen. Okay, here comes the music. So you can choose if you want to move to the flute or if you want to move to the drum. Can you move your hand? If you're being a flute person, I want you to make a gesture and freeze on the flute sound. Maybe just your foot. Maybe your eyes. Brilliant. Well done. Excellent. I'm just going to stop that now, if I can.
Thank you.
Excellent. Stop.
We still hear it, but
I know, I'm trying to stop it. I won't stop. Got it. I can do it now. That's brilliant. It's gone. Oh, no, it hasn't.
No, I still hear it.
Why can we still hear that? Right, I'm just going to get rid of that somehow. Don't do it anymore.
Well, Anita, you're up as soon
Yeah.
as music goes on pause.
Excellent. It's gone.
Thank
It's gone.
you so much.
That was very quick, and I didn't really explain that last activity very
well.
well.
We'll talk about it. We'll have
Yeah,
a chance
sure.
to discuss it. Thank you. So, Mary, I think you're up whenever you're ready. We can't hear you.
Hi, brilliant. Right, I'm gonna put some words in. So I'm gonna talk very, very quickly, and then I'm gonna give you a task. I've got a piece of music for you all to move to. So I'm really glad that Anita has done a warm up. Well, not a warm up, but I'm glad that she's warmed you up a little bit. I teach Dark Rose Eurythmics in London across many settings, but I also call myself an interdisciplinary artist, and it's such a joy for me to discover Dark Rose suddenly, because all the things that make sense to me joined up, and using text as a starting point was wonderful too, and it's just so exciting for me. So I'm going to write some words into the chat box for you just now, because these are words which are text from a song that we're going to move to. There's this one, this one. Here we go. This is a piece of music by Purcell, written for the birthday. It's called Birthday Ode for Queen Mary, but it's arranged by Christine Puhat, and it's a beautiful arrangement. And wait, yeah, I suppose these are all words which incite movement or connect with movement. And I'd like you to use these as a movement score when I play the track, which I'll play in a minute, and that'll be it. When the track's finished, that'll be the end of my session. So it's just for you to enjoy, and you can do it seated. So you've got these words: strike, touch, wake, sing. And it's just, oh yeah, inspire is another one, sorry. Inspire, I think, is another one. So these words could be, they're a movement score. And I gave this as, I do a little bit of work with dancers, and I gave this as a provocation when it was my birthday, because my birthday was in April, and I gave this as a provocation for people to come up with a dance piece or a movement piece that following perhaps the phrasing of the singing or any repetition in it, using these strike, touch, wake, sing, inspire, any movement words as a score as well, to give you a bit of a repertoire. So I'm going to put the music on now. I'm going to share the music with you, and you can just go away with it. It's going to be a 4-minute, just under 4 minutes exploration and enjoyment, because it's a very joyful piece of music. So bear with me while I get the music up. So I'm going to go share screen first. Here we go. And here it comes. And
Thank you. That was fabulous. Thank you, Mary.
My pleasure.
Well, the floor is open for questions, reflections. You can we can talk more about the activities that were shared, ask follow-up questions. You can also bring up other things. You can type them in the chat, or you can wave, and Stephen or I will call on you.
I'll just start by saying what great energy from the two of you. Anita and Mary Price, both of you, it was such a joy to watch you work. I want to come and join your classes for sure. I have to find my ticket to England soon.
Well, you can do it now via Zoom, right?
I know. You know, what did you call your drum exercise? I thought you had 3 words.
Yeah, so it's pop, ripple, and freeze.
Oh, and freeze. I couldn't think of what
Freeze.
the 3rd thing was. Very nice.
Because I think with the very young children, it's really hard for them to stop moving.
Sure.
Once you get going, you get very, very excited, like little jumping beans, and actually to be able to wait is great. And so when I do that exercise, initially, the freezes are very, very short. And then as the exercise gets longer, the wait gets longer.
Very
And
nice.
also, when I start off doing it, I always start with the drum playing really quite loudly, just to get them energized at the start, because they can't resist it. But then as the exercise goes on, the drumming gets quieter and maybe a bit slower. And without saying anything, they do start to respond and slow down the way they're running. And then we get them to go much faster again. And so it's a very joyful and very simple exercise for them to understand immediately what they need to do to it.
Very good. And I'll just point out that the joy there is maybe a little bit in the exercise, but it's so much in the teacher. And so the way that you are leading and bringing us in, I mean, that to me really feels like that's where the joy is coming from. And so I so appreciate just your energy and the way that you're delivering, and are so obviously passionate about the way that you're introducing these young ones. I can think of all kinds of things that could be sort of a next step. Do you have ideas off the top of your head of, so you do that a time or 5? You know, you have a number of days where you play that game. Then do you have any standard things that you think, oh, I do this before I do the next thing, which would be maybe this next thing? Like what sorts of things are next or could be next?
I think what I'm doing all the time, I'm scanning the classroom to see what the children are doing. And you usually find that someone else has brought another movement in, And you think, right, what sound could we have to go with that? So a case in point today would be that there was someone in my class, and what they were doing with their foot, if you imagine this their foot, they started to just slide their foot around. So I looked at them, I didn't even know their name yet, and then immediately I just took the drum skin and just started to make this move. What could you do with your foot? And then they start to do that. And then you just, all the time, you're watching for their input. You don't want to completely own the class all the time. You want them to feel that their ideas are valued right from the very beginning. And then the next thing that I would do is I would actually ask them to go away, and I'd say, can you make, this would maybe after a few weeks, I'd say, can you make up a pattern of pops and ripples and freezes? And so they might do different types of jumps and then seeing if they can freeze. And that works really, really nicely. So it's a simple little way into making little compositions. And then what we are going to do is we're going to translate these into some body percussion activities as well. We can do in my schools, if I'm outside, I can do a small amount of singing. I have to be with a visor, but the children don't, because in England they're in their bubble and they're allowed to, you know, as long as they're spaced, they can sing. So we're going to do body percussion, because we can't do as much singing, and again move them on to making their own little improvisations in sound and movement.
It's lovely. Thank you so much for all of those ideas. And of course, the ideas are limitless, but those are some really great ideas as to what would be next. Um, who else? Who does anyone have? Kay?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to Mary and Anita. I work with them, so I'm very proud of them. It's great to see. I know all about Anita's energy and Mary's energy too. I've got a question for Mary, actually. I was just thinking about the words that you chose. Did you do this live? Have you done it in person, Mary?
Have I done it in person? No, I just sent it as a provocation. Have I done this one in person? No, I haven't. I mean, it's a very, but I would like to. It's only because I've only done it since lockdown. I'd love to do it live. I have visions of meeting people in parks and doing this.
Yeah. So I mean, so I guess I was thinking, like with singing, if you'd done it, you'd have some people pretending to sing, and you'd have some people presumably singing, and some people, yeah. It's
You
just
could,
like quite fun.
so for me, it's more. It's completely open. So it's completely open how people are, because people are at different places. And when I sent this, if I was to send this for people who've been studying Dark Rose Eurythmics, they'd interpret it in one way. I mean, singing isn't necessarily singing, and in fact, even myself, singing was more of a kind of an open thing.
So
Or it could be
singing with the body then.
singing with the body. Yes, it's not miming. It's not.
Yeah.
But it can be, if that's where
It
people
can be.
are.
I just had this vision of, some people sing out loud, some people pretending, and then some people, using.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, it's a really simple. But for me, I do this a lot with. I've done this when I've done movement compositions myself for my Dark Rose license, solo piece. I chose a piece of text that I thought my piece wasn't based on the text, but I used text as a way in for me to help me create other things, to bounce off into another direction. But for me, it's really, if I say, and dancers use this terminology and it's beautiful, say, this is your score. Your score is spinal listening. Your movement score is dancing as if there's somebody 3 foot in front of you and you're copying them. These are really common. These are, and Selma's nodding, these are really common provocations for movement within the dance world. And they're really, really, really useful. So for me to say, use this, it could have been that somebody could have explored different ways of touch all the way through. It's very, very open, because it's about giving people a way to listen to a piece of music or enjoy a piece of music without being completely stuck and not being given any tools to work with. But also it's great fun. And this wonderful dancer called Lucas Villafont, who's based at Paris Opera, who's trained, he's taught at Wuppertal, he's learned from Dominique Mercy. He made me a dance piece. It was so beautiful in a park somewhere. He did it based on that provocation. So yeah, that's it. That's quite a long answer, sorry.
Thank you.
Who else? You have something either to comment or to talk to today? So I see your hand up, but your name's not on the screen yet. So go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, you mean Rebecca?
Is it
Can you
Glass?
see her?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Hi, I have my.
Rebecca, there's an odd thing. I don't know if everybody else happens on their screen, but the whole last week, most of the people on my screen, I can see their names. And then there's always a couple people that I can't see their name until they unmute themselves.
That is weird.
And then when
That's weird.
your name will stay. So I'm sorry, I didn't know your name, Rebecca. Welcome.
That's okay, thanks. So Mary, that would be, I teach private voice, and that would be the kind of an exercise that I would use in my studio for a student. It's brilliant to find that piece of music that's a different interpretation of it. So if I had a student learning that song, something like that would be really useful for them to kind of shake it up a little bit, and using that movement terminology for them to think about the text in a song, because so many times vocalists, and I imagine people in other private studios, get so stuck in the technique that they don't think about, the large part of the song. And so giving them the text as a singer, or I'm sure there are other things that you could do as an instrumentalist to be able to sort of shake things loose in their interpretation of the song. That would be really a great thing to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. Christine Fluhar has done so many wonderful arrangements. And if you're not familiar with her, find her, listen to her, because she really shakes it up. So it's really lovely. And I've done it when I've done work with adults. I've used her arrangements of Handel alongside, you know, the more conventional versions of Handel, because it is useful. It throws, as you say, it throws a different light on it. And it might give a bit more energy, and then you come back and you might follow the melody a little bit more, or hear it differently because it's been mixed up a bit.
Yeah, it gives you a different performance even in the traditional one when you go back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very nice. Well, how's everybody's week, new weeks back to school been going? What's happening in your spaces? What are you doing, Adriana?
I am very excited because I teach at Longy in person, eurythmics and improvisation for the undergrads and grad students. And the school is empty. I am on the stage. The students are where the chairs are. So very far away from me. The space is huge. I have mask. They have a mask. And for my biggest surprise, it's going even better because they don't chat with each other. They are not busy with the shoes, with the phone, with the whatever. They have no other things to do, just focus on what we do in the class. And it's working very well. However, I have in eurythmics class, I have 5 students, it's a big class, like 18 students, 5 students on Zoom. I can't do that. We tried, it's not working, so for the Zoom people, I offer another day and another time. They're in China. So like 8 p.m. for me, 8 in the morning for them.
Right.
I do a separate Zoom class. I'm not paid for this, but it's really not about that. It's about they have to get what they're supposed to get.
Yep. Yeah, I'm also teaching in that hybrid mode where I have live
And
in the room, or we're actually attempting outdoor classes. So we're doing outdoor. I've got students in the field, and then I have a handful of students on a screen trying to participate, through their monitors, and we're just getting started in it all. So we'll see how it goes so far.
I mean, given the fact that most of the students who are on Zoom are not English speakers, for them it's even more confusing. Because if I'm at the piano and they look at the other students, they don't hear me, they don't hear the piano, or they see me and hear me, don't do the class. So it's too confusing. If I would have 3 cameras and I don't know how many mics, would be different. But in this,
Yeah.
I decided.
Sorry.
It's okay.
For my outdoor classroom, I have a lavalier microphone. I have 2 cameras that I toggle between, one when I'm sitting at the piano and one that shows the field. And I can get up and move around and they can still hear me. But we had to work very hard to figure out how to get my microphone to both be heard by the students in the field and to get into the computer into Zoom. That was not easy.
Yeah. So yeah, if I would be, as I said, technically differently, I would do it. But I decided for right now, I'm just offering another class on Zoom. And in reality, it is my job to make sure that they get what they have to get, but it's my learning experience.
Right. Oh, it's a lot. We're all definitely learning some new things here. How about anybody else? Any other different age groups? Or Veronica?
So I am teaching in person at my school. It's a K-8 school, and we are with masks and staying 6 feet apart. And we're not allowed to sing indoors. And so that, for the younger kids especially, has been a huge change for me, because I never knew until this moment how much I use singing to give directions and to give kids something to do and to organize them and to let them be creative with inventing new words. And I think it's hard for kids who aren't that experienced musicians to connect with just instrumental music. And you know, I'm a flutist and I love to use the flute for the like power of projection, but now I can't play the flute indoors either. So I'm on the piano, which is not my main instrument, and there's no tuners that are coming, so it's an out of tune piano, and it's my job to find the tuner because everyone else is swamped, right? So it's just like, I tried to play the hand drum and I realized that I have like very little skills beyond like kindergarten, like strong and gentle. And so Anita, I was really inspired by your drum playing, and a question that I want to throw out to all of you and maybe get some ideas is any tips for playing the drums in a more interesting and musical way to lead a class, and other ways to involve the kids in participating in making music when we can't sing.
Anita.
Yeah.
Anita, you muted yourself. Try again.
Yeah. I think the trick is to find a drum that suits you. So a djembe drum isn't really, although you can get a lot of different tones on it, and unless you're going to stand and hold it between your knees, it's not great. However, if you can get a good baran, you can hold it in your hand on the cross piece, and you can use your hand with quite a lot of subtlety on that drum, and you can walk as you're playing, which I find to be really, really useful thing, because you can then engage your whole body, can't you? So I think the trick is to find the right drum. And if you know, it's often a lot easier to use a hand than to try and use a stick. You know, you can get in a pickle with a stick. Oh, a pickle with a stick. I like that. Yeah. But I think what you want to do is just go down the music store if you can and just find a drum you like. And that'll transform you. Yeah.
Thank you.
One of the things that I used to use when I was working with children were found objects. So anything in the room, if you're working in contact, makes a sound. So a waste paper basket turned upside down is a sound. I gave my students each a piece of tin foil, and to see what they could do with it when we were making rhythmic communication with each other, slapping on the back of a chair, stomping your foot. It doesn't necessarily, I don't think, need to be as organized as everybody having a drum, because it's more interesting and inventive for the kids when there are found objects, keys jiggling and pencils on a desk, or what. I mean, you don't want to destroy the room, but you'd be surprised how rhythmically inventive kids can be with simple found objects.
Very nice. Thank you, Dory. There was well, I see, Anita, you have another comment, and then we should get to Joy's question. So go ahead.
And Kay also had something to say.
Just very quickly, yesterday I was working with parents and their very young children, and in the classes that they used to come to me, we used a lot of props and objects. But yesterday I had socks hung up on a washing line, all pegged up, and in each sock was, yesterday in my first group, I had spades, as in buckets and spades. And in the second group, I had a pair of flip-flops, tiny little children's flip-flops. And then we used those to play the park. So just as you were suggesting, Dory, we went out and we found the railings of the park and we played the tree. And we just used those things, and they all had the same objects. There was no arguing about it because they were little tiny people. And then each week, when they come to a music group with me, the socks will be pegged up, and I've got a little sock song. And in each song, there'll be something different, all the same, that they can use to play the space.
I like that. That's great.
Outstanding. Veronica, who did you say also?
Kay, and
Yeah,
then
I was just going to say that, because echoing what Dory said, I'm not teaching at the moment, but 'cause I'm a student, but I used to teach in a high school, and in the UK we had a show, it's gone off now, called Stomp, which made rhythmical pieces from junk. And when I did that with my classes, it was often the most popular unit of work we did, and they did things with basketballs. They brought in their own junk. We did stuff they had conversations with stuff out of their pencil cases. All, you know, it was really, really good fun. Just to echo that, you don't have to have musical instruments really to create music.
Very good. Joy asked if we have experience teaching asynchronously. It seems that most of our conversations of the 13 meetups have been mostly about synchronous, but we definitely have come in and out of that conversation. And we had an early, I don't know, was it our second or third meetup where we talked about asynchronous specifically. We'll direct you to Anthony Molinaro's website, Mr. Mo Music. I'll look it up and put it in the chat. But Anthony has posted a whole series of asynchronous videos, for his students at home. I'm not sure. We have to check in with him and find out what he's doing right now. But I know that in the spring, all of his teaching was asynchronous he teaches at an public elementary school. And Anthony has shared here before, and we just love him. Does anyone else have thoughts about asynchronous, or we might just refer to Anthony?
I know that Eiko Ishizuka was trying it for a while, and then I think she went back to live because she just had no idea if anyone was watching it. Like that there was this, like, you have an appointment and you show up, and when you send busy, overwhelmed parents a video to watch on your own time, like very few people actually watched it and did it. But I think that might be a really interesting, if anyone knows, anyone who's doing asynchronous teaching, just send them our way and we can ask them to share and present, because you're right that we have definitely not gravitated that. Yeah, Joy.
And it's not really an option. Like, that is not everyone has the option of one or the other. In some cases, we know that colleagues are required asynchronous, and in other cases, the technology or just the culture needs it to be asynchronous. Joy, what did you want to tell us a little?
Yeah, it's just for my community music programs where I'm trying to, oh, sorry, my video is just really strange. But anyway, yeah, it's just like, we still can't really go into the communities. So it's just like, I'm looking into if asynchronous videos or just small little things could be a possibility.
And it's actually occurring to me, we have talked about this in a couple different ways. The other set of meetups that we've talked through were those with Sandra Nash, and when we talked about Heather Gell. So Heather Gell was the sort of the grande dame of Australia for many years, who inspired many teachers, and she had a major part of her professional work was teaching over the radio, and so which is nearly, has much in common with asynchronous in that you can't react to what you see. And so the students had to just show up at a time, and it really wouldn't have mattered if she was pre-recorded or not pre-recorded or live. I think at least at the beginning of her work, it was it was live. But then by the end of her doing those, she was doing television teaching. And so those would have likely been pre-recorded. And so she couldn't see her students. She just had to sort of act like they were there and ask the question and wait for the moment for the student to answer when she couldn't hear, and work. And she was really very dedicated to those classes. And I know that there's now generations of teachers who are, following through on so many of her initial ideas. So I would say it's not, in my opinion, it's not that one is better or worse than the other. They just are kind of useful for the things they're useful for. Mary?
It's something that I was really, when we first started having to move online, I've been doing these online yoga classes with Yoga with Adrienne for quite a few years now. but I was really struck because she teaches by video, but she is really brilliant. She is a fantastic model of somebody who engages the student as if they were in the room with them at the real time. And she is very skilled. And I think these are probably skills that Heather Jill naturally had and also developed. And I've mentioned this to other people, she'll give corrections. She'll say simple corrections to people. Go, yeah, head over heart, heart over pelvis. You go, oh yeah, and you organize yourself, or do this or do that. She generally corrects in the positive, and I would say if anyone's thinking about teaching anyway, in that way, to have a look at her videos or would anyone agree? Because it's such a brilliant skill, and it's always pleasant and always positive and draws you in. Just wanted to add that.
I come with a fair bit of skepticism. I'm still skeptical after helping, co-leading these conversations for these months and coming into it. My disposition just kind of it just keeps, I have this nagging thing in the back, like, this could not work. This would never work. I would never do this. And then I have to admit, every time I get back into the Zoom classroom, the students are so much more receptive and flexible and willing than I ever think they're going to be. We just finished my first week back at the university last week, where I met 60 new students and I had 40 returning students, and I was really worried about working with my new ones, the freshmen, because I just thought, how could you possibly introduce our work, our Dalcroze work, over Zoom? Like, the introduction, I just really worried me. And man, they just took it up. They were just willing to do whatever I asked them to do. And it was more about me getting over myself than about them. Only to say that I think whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, the students are resilient. And if they can just get in front of the screen or whatever the modality is, they're willing to do it. And then I'll just say one more bit, which is just coming out now of so many months of seclusion, that to have anything to do and any kind of interaction is way more than none. And so I think there's also something really exciting in the kind of work that we offer. So go Joy, you can do it. I know you can do it. Mary?
I'm back at school teaching. I teach generally in three different places. One is at the Guildhall, which we're still doing with Kay and Anita, and we're still going to be online for that for the whole of this term. One of them is a school they've had Dalcroze there for 50 years, over 50 years, I think, and I go on a Friday morning, and I was able to teach in a studio, a big space with children. I was so emotional. These are reception children. And then in my prep school, which is 2.5 days a week, I'm teaching in a small room. I can sing inside with them, but it's very difficult because I'm constantly getting different mixed messages from everybody, and the room is just too small. If a room is too small for all the children to lie on the floor and do angel things, then the room is too small for the class, in my opinion. But that is what I have, and as Drusilla, she's another Dalcroze teacher in the UK, is we follow the rules until we don't have to, and I have to keep reminding myself that.
No, very good. We're getting close to the end of time. Kay had asked, I mentioned my teaching outdoors and microphones and such, and Kay asked just what it was that I was doing. So I'll very quickly tell you, and then if anybody wants like real details, just send me an email and I'll send you back as much as I can. The situation that I'm experimenting with this week for our first couple classes of this week is we're trying to teach outdoors, what I'm calling in the field. And the problem in my experience with Dalcroze outside has been that while we love the open space, I hate the acoustics. Unless I was in the most proper amphitheater where there's actual acoustical attention, I found it almost unbearable. Like it just seems utterly failing to try to get the sense of intimacy of chamber music in the outdoors. And so in the past, there's only been kind of two options. You can either holler, and so you end up hoarse and it just never quite worked, or you can amplify to like rock concert standards, which is a really different aesthetic to, again, what we are accustomed to or what we sort of thrive on in the studio, where we can play pianissimos that are not only heard but felt. And it's in those sort of vibrations that are felt where I believe so much of the strength of this work, comes from. And so because I've never had a good solution for that, I mostly have just thought, we won't do that outdoor. We'll just stay indoor. But now with COVID and all of these, I've been working harder to try to find some solutions. So I found a decent digital keyboard, which normally I also stomp my feet about. I hate playing, but I'm trying to get over myself, and I've got a decent digital keyboard that we figured out how to get outside. And then I have a setup, and it gets technical. So again, I can send you as best the details I have, but what I have is a digital keyboard that goes into a mixer, a very small 4-channel mixer. On one channel of the mixer is the keyboard. A second channel of the mixer is a lavalier microphone, and my university had a couple nice ones sitting around, so I have a professional grade lavalier microphone. I look like Britney Spears with my little headset that I'm wearing. And so I have those two things. They go into the mixer. The mixer then sends it one line into my computer, which pumps into Zoom, because I'm hybrid teaching like Adriana. And so I have some students not in the field, they're at home on Zoom. And so they get the feed of me talking and playing the digital piano through Zoom. And then I have a second line out that goes to an FM transmitter, and all of my students in the field have little FM receivers, little radios, and they tune in my personal radio station. And that's how we dealt with the acoustics. So and nothing is amplified. So the people walking by the field can't hear anything. It's silent. And so you have to have the headphones, and you have to be tuned to the correct radio station to be able to hear me. And so in that case, I can whisper into their ear, and they hear it very clearly. And the technology was actually not that expensive. The only part that was expensive is I have 100 students, and my head of school wanted everyone to have their own receiver. But we had a plan to share 20 receivers, because I don't normally have more than 18 or 20 in a class, and that could have worked as well. And so, we've done a couple tests that were very successful. We had a first day of class today that was an utter failure, but we're going to be back at it tomorrow, and I think we have it now worked out. And so next meetup, I can tell you more and maybe show you some pictures. But those are the
Yes, I want to see pictures.
Yeah, that's what we're playing with. So it's tricky because there's 2 lines out. If it wasn't hybrid, if I didn't have to get to Zoom and live, it wouldn't have been very easy. But the trick that I needed technical assistance with was, how do I get 2 lines out and have Zoom recognize one and have the FM radio transmitter recognize the other?
So do you also have headphones so that you get your own monitor?
Yeah, exactly.
You have a third line out to your own headphones.
Yeah, and that's also part of it. It's not perfectly ideal. Right now, my monitor is that I am also wearing a radio. And so I just hear my own broadcast.
Is it delayed, or is it exactly in time?
No, the FM is no
nice.
noticeable delay in FM, which was what made it useful for the field. Well, unlike Zoom, because there was another solution where they all could just have their phone and play the Zoom on their phone, but then we're back to delay, and then it's dumb.
Right.
It's not worth it. Rebecca?
Is the FM radio only local?
Yes. Yeah, and it just depends on how fancy a transmitter you get. They have different wattages, and there's some level in the States where if you broadcast farther than, if you have a more wattage, there's a limit on watts. And so as long as you stay below whatever the limit is, then anybody can set up their own pop-up FM radio station. It just isn't allowed to be too big. And then there's a level where it gets too big, and then you have to have clearance by the government, the FCC. But as long as you stay within it. And so and it's a teeny little battery powered thing. I mean, it's really small. It'll broadcast about a full city block, but it won't broadcast to the other side of the city. And so it's plenty big for a large field, like a soccer field or something. It'll easily fill up that whole space. And I required my students to bring their own headphones, even though when we bought the receivers, they came with earbuds. But I wanted the students to value it a little more, and I wanted them to have better audio than these little cheap earbuds would would provide. So they all bringing their fanciest headphones they can afford that have to be wired. They have to plug in. So I can give you more details of that if you want. But.
Yes, thank you.
So we're about at time. We hate to run over. So I think I'm going to call it. It's 3:01. If anybody has more questions, want to stick around, I'm not going anywhere. I can. Veronica and I have words, so we'll be here for a little bit. So if you want to say hi, by all means. I'm going to stop the recording, but we'll say goodbye before I stop.
Bye, everyone.
And then we stop the recording.